Hi everyone, welcome to the Baggage Dumper webinar, webinar number 3, where Kim Cooper, my wife Kim, and myself and Dallas Fell have been introducing to you the new program that we've got with Baggage Dumper, how exciting it's been. This is day 3, we're going to do a little bit of a recap. But first, where is Kim? Well, Kim's actually resting her voice. Her voice has started to get a bit croaky today. We've also got 2 very unwell children, and she's looking after them, and it's just been going around. It's the middle of winter here in Australia, so we're all down. We're down on our health a little bit, but we're taking care of it. So that's where Kim is. She's down looking after the kids. But Dallas is still with us. Good morning, good afternoon, Dallas. How are you going?
Hi. Good whatever it is where you are in the world, everyone.
So Dallas, look, before we've got a bunch of audience questions here that we're going to talk about today, but we've also, as I said, we're day 3 of the 3-part webinar series for this week, and we've talked about many different things, and we've talked about it and we've shared it through the week. How is it that we can just catch people up briefly, Dallas? And I'll give you a couple of minutes to just give us a bit of a recap on some of the things we've talked about, the program, how it works in with Kim and Steve's program, and then let's get into some audience questions.
Yeah, so the Baggage Dumper program and your work, Steve, your work with Kim, really dovetail in really nicely together, and it depends where somebody's up to in their life, where it fits in. Sometimes it can be the first step, because I know when you're dealing with relationships, sometimes the first step is to get yourself strong and protected and do those things that that Kim mentions early on in the Back from the Looking Glass book, to get yourself safe and get systems set up to protect you. Sometimes people aren't even ready for that yet because they're still dealing with so much mental and emotional rubbish inside them. So that's where the program can come in. On the other side of things, if you've come through some difficult times in your life and you've actually sorted out relationship problems, either helping make things work in the relationship you're in or moving past it, you can still be carrying some of the rubbish from that, so Baggage Dumper comes in there as well. So we've gone over a bit of how those 2 programs work together, and also once you've cleared your rubbish, one of the topics we've been dealing with is what next, like what goes into that space and what can you replace that rubbish with. If you've got an old pattern, you know, you talked to Steve about how you were running an irritable, grumpy pattern, and it was something you gathered in from your grandfather, and you were playing it out with your own kids. So once you do want to get rid of that, what do you replace it with? So we've covered a bit of that territory too, how you can actually choose something to go in there, and it might be something that you already have inside you that you can just rediscover, or something you can model from someone else. So there's we did cover a lot of territory, and we've got a lot more to cover. I really want to get into today, if we get a chance to cover a bit more of that territory of how do we deal with life. You know, we wake up each day, it's a blank canvas. What do we fill it with? How do we decide how to live? And how can Baggage Dumper help with that? Because it is kind of a bit of an unknown quantity, this life we're in. And how can we shape it and get the best out of it for ourselves and people around us, and rediscover that lightheartedness that we're all craving and sometimes find it so hard to get. And I've heard too there's some questions coming through, so I'd love to deal with some of those as well.
Well, Dallas, I mean, you just introduced that very interesting topic there. How is it that we do? So let's start there, because I think it's pretty important. You know, a lot of people wake up in the morning, and you know, over our histories, everyone's been through peaks and troughs in their lives, I suppose. But for a lot of people that seem to have hit rock bottom, or they seem to be stuck, or you know, in some kind of way not feeling like they're moving forward. What is that dialogue that's going on in our heads when we wake up in the morning? Like you say, we wake up in the morning. What are we doing? What is our next step? What is, you know, how are we stuck here? What kind of baggage is weighing us down? So, can we talk about that now, Dallas? Is that going to work good? Okay, let's go. Yeah.
So when you do, I think one of the key things that can help set your the way you function in a day is that first thing you say to yourself just before your foot wanders out the side of the bed to hit the floor. What is that thing you say to yourself? And for a lot of us, it's something not really that helpful, like, oh, well, I guess I have to get up now, or oh my gosh, I have to face another day, or, there's all sorts of negative things that can be going on when we're in a challenged part of our life. But knowing that that's the first thing you can actually manufacture for yourself is a really interesting thing. You can choose what to say and actually make yourself say it. So here we go, bring it on, let's go, or something else like that that helps you get your foot out of the bed. So that's something you can actually choose. But sometimes, if you've got a pattern in your life of waking up with a heavy feeling and negative feeling on you, then one of the beautiful questions that I like to ask myself and encourage others to ask is, how am I doing that? And that might just seem like an odd question if you've never come across it before, but during the program you'll see how important it is to reflect on. We always think, if I'm feeling bad, it must be the outside world that's making me like that. And if you look around, there's always a million good reasons why you're feeling bad. I mean, there's bad things happening in the world. There's no doubt bad things that have happened in your life. For some people, those things are excruciatingly bad and very heavy to carry. And so it's easy to point to the outside world and say, well, that's the reason that I'm anxious or sad, or that I've woken up with this heavy feeling, or that I can't connect with people, or I can't trust anymore, or whatever it is that you're carrying. You can look at the external world and say, yep, it's out there. That's why I can't be lighthearted and happy. But one of the things that is happening inside you is that you're tapping into 3 things to help that happen. And I know this was a really challenging thing for me to hear when I first heard it. So I acknowledge that it can be tricky to hear. I had someone say to me, so how are you doing that? I'm not doing that. But when you think about it, there are really 3 things that you can do to create a feeling inside yourself. One is the way you use your body. And definitely when I was going through that terrible part of my life where I was so horribly depressed, I was pretty hunched over, looking down, doing all those depressive sort of behaviours with my body. I didn't get out and do a lot of walking. I didn't breathe in big sort of drafts of fresh air. I wasn't doing that. So I was using my body in a very shut down way. I was focusing. Someone's estimated we get 90,000 thoughts a day to play with, and I don't know if that number is right or not, but it kind of sets in our mind the idea we do have a budget of thoughts that we can play with. So that's the important thing, rather than how many. You just think, well, how many of my thoughts am I going to spend on that terrible thing that happened to me, or that disaster that could happen next week, or the things that are wrong with my life now? I can spend a bit of time on that and think, okay, well, how can I defend against that thing that might happen, and come up with a plan. But then I want to just park it. It's like, right, I've got my plan. Now I want to focus on what's great today. How can I connect with the people around me? How can I have fun? Like, you can actually redirect some of your thoughts back to things that you want. And the third thing is the language we use. When we're talking about that terrible thing that happened to us, oh, it's a disaster, it's ruined my life, I can never trust again. You hear yourself saying these words to yourself that lock you into that way of being. So if I wake up and I'm kind of not feeling my brightest, there's something heavy on me, my first question is always, so how am I doing that? And I think, okay, I'm using my body in a certain way. I'm also focusing on things that are bringing me down. Maybe I'm spending all my thoughts when I first wake up thinking about that, how badly something went the day before. And maybe I can spend a few thoughts on that and think, so how can I make that better? But I don't want to dwell there going over and over it. I want to go move it to somewhere else pretty fast. And I might notice some bad language that I'm using to myself about it, like, oh, that was a disaster, rather than saying, I can choose a different way of talking about it, saying, well, boy, that didn't go the way I wanted to. Wonder how I can make that, get the best out of that I possibly can. So asking yourself those 3 questions gives you the power to move from somewhere you've been, oh, I feel bad, to somewhere new. And I often find that people say in my field, physiology first, that I can lead with my body just doing something different and sort of throwing on a pair of running shoes and running around the block, and just getting that activation happening in my body sort of overrides a lot of that negative thinking straight off. So that's a really powerful driver. So yeah, the world is a bit of a blank canvas, and it can fill itself up with whatever you've habitually done, and can fill itself up with things from the external world. But ultimately, we do get to manage some of this stuff. No matter what's been going on in our lives, we can take a bit of control and just go, I choose to spend my thoughts on this. I'm going to blow a giant raspberry at that old thing that keeps coming up in my mind and just move on to something else right now. Yeah, so does that resonate at all with you, Steve?
It does, and yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, Dallas. It does, and why it resonates with me. It resonates with me personally, but we talked about that in the last couple of webinars, so I won't go there again. For the most part, for people that are just new to Kim and my program, Kim and Steve's program, we are basically provide resources to help you in your relationship. So that's in a nutshell what we do. So just hearing what you've been saying, Dallas, about how your work helps people move past and starts changing some of that internal language, starts changing some of that physiology, starts changing some of the modes of thinking. Well, for me, that really brings back a lot of to the very genesis of why we put this program together with you, Dallas, because the people that have approach us and have needed our help over the years, we've got various books that tackle various problems, but one of the big gaps we had was just helping people move past those old mindsets, move past those old ways of thinking, which, in a nutshell, they're useless. They're actually helping you stay in a bad relationship, and it doesn't matter what other programs you're doing, doesn't matter how fit you are, how gorgeous you are, how much organic food you eat, and how many vitamins you take. It doesn't matter if you're got that self-talk that's saying that this is hopeless, this is madness, this is unreal, I can't deal with it. If you're stuck there in that thinking, well, you're going to keep creating it for yourself, but you're also going to keep creating a very unhelpful environment in your family or in your relationship with your partner. And so everything you've just talked about there, Dallas, has really helped me feel good about what we're doing again, all over again, because we really are focusing here on, with us in particular, with this new program, is to say to the people that come to our products, to say, look, if you join the gold level membership, you really are coming in to get the Baggage Dumper program available to you, and that Baggage Dumper program is really helping you take those next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps that you really need to take in order to get past those old ways of thinking. There's one thing that that sets Kim's work apart from a lot of other people who are dealing with the topic of narcissism and codependence. And for those of you that don't know, Kim and I talk a lot about narcissism and codependence in relationships and how they create that bad language that Dallas has just talked about. So narcissism and codependence, again, just very quickly, is just a system. It's just a system, and it's a dance. It's a way of how information flows between two partners in a relationship mostly, and throughout the family as well. But just in that dynamic of the relationship I'm talking about now, the women and men who have this narcissistic way of dealing with life create a codependent partner, and that kind of set of behaviors and physiology and posturing flows back and forth between the two people. And of course, this is all creating language, an internal language and a language with each other. And that cycle needs to be broken. And that cycle is so important to break, and there's so much that Kim and I haven't been able to do over the past 8 years, and that's the reason why the Baggage Dumper program's here now, and that's why we're so excited. We're doing so many webinars and talking about it so often, because we know that's where we're going to get to next. We're going to get to a point where you can look at your relationship and say, well, the way I'm dealing with my anxiety and my disappointment is by making the people around me feel uncomfortable about it as well, or whatever it is. I mean, the Baggage Dumper program really helps you revisit what you're doing, how you're operating, the things that you're saying, the words that you're saying to yourself and to each other. And so from a relationship point of view, this is so vital. So Dallas, let's talk about the relationship sides of things as well, because I know you deal with people one-on-one with your private practice mostly, but talk to us about how you've matched that private practice strategy that you have with Kim and my material, which is, focusing on relationships.
Yeah, well, a lot of people ask me, and I had this question asked just last week about, okay, we're having trouble as a couple. Should we do the program together? And my answer to that is no, do the program individually. And I guess a lot of people who have engaged with with the Kim and Steve side of the program have seen how powerful it can be to alter your own world in order to alter the whole system, which means the other person can't run the same old pattern. And when you're dealing with your own stuff, it can be really helpful not to have the distraction of someone else there watching you do that. It's very, very personal. What's happened to you in your life and how you deal with it is very, very personal. But once you've got that out of the way, it can open you up to that beautiful connection that you want with another human being, whether it's in your main intimate relationship or people beyond, your kids, your friends, your workplace. So getting rid of that rubbish means you're not running programs that are getting in the way of that connection. So even though it is a very individualized program that you do through Baggage Dumper, it can have massive positive effects on relationship. And the scripts that I work on helping people change their language can really be helpful in relationship. And once you've cleared the rubbish, you can go back and get the Kim and Steve scripts as well, which have things to say like how to stop a fight that's right in progress, and saying, I don't think it's going to be useful to talk about that right now, I really need to go to bed, and whatever it is that you say to interrupt that old pattern that you might have run so many times before. So yeah, there's some great scripts that you can get going to just bust out of old habitual patterns that are getting in the way of that beautiful connection, and playing into old patterns of being together that don't really work. So I guess the first thing is to clear your own rubbish. The other thing that's good about doing it by yourself is that it's not tempting to just keep focusing on the other person and thinking, yeah, Dallas is right, I should be doing this. Face the screen and go, no, it's not about that person now, it's about me, and I've got to do this, and stepping up to owning your own stuff. So many of us look to other people to get themselves fixed so they can look after us. That's such a common pattern we come across. Get rid of your own problems so you can look after me.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
we know that we're doing it and go, oh, that feels uncomfortable. But we often will do that, want someone else to be looking after us, and we want them to fix themselves so they can. So yeah, being your own self-rescuer is a really good place to be in this world. That puts you at the center of everything and makes a lot of things possible. So yeah, relationships are, I guess that's partly why we called the program Baggage Dumper. When you're talking about someone you might go into a relationship with, your friends are all sitting around with you saying, has that person got a lot of baggage? And so it's something that's used a lot in the relationship field, that terminology and that idea that someone's carrying a lot of heavy emotional baggage, sometimes from past relationships. But we do go beyond that as well, right back into all sorts of traumatic experiences that people might have had in their lives that they want to dump out. So we're not just about relationships in this program, but it does have massive positive effects for connecting with the beautiful people in your life who deserve that light-hearted best of you, and yeah, might ultimately get to see it. So that's really exciting for us, imagining that end point where you come through the end of the program and you just do get to open up to that light-hearted, fun, playful side of you.
And that's exactly what we're trying to unlock here. And let's go back a step a little bit, what you were saying there, Dallas, and explain. I'm going to take this opportunity to just explain a little bit more about how our program, Kim and my program, works in with the Baggage Dumper program. And that is that there is an issue of power in a relationship that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. And that's one of the most recurring themes that we get from people who contact us. And look, there's a whole. I'm opening a can of worms here, but I want to try and contain it within something. There is a power struggle in every single relationship, and it's our job as men and women in that relationship to acknowledge that, but also to negotiate within that power arrangement. It's also our jobs to plan, be proactive, and be sensitive to other people's plans and needs. And we also have to acknowledge that it's not always going to go smoothly, and that we don't have a program or a perfect formula that's going to mean that there's going to be never a problem or a disagreement in the future. So, I mean, I guess we're starting with a recognition or an acknowledgement that in a relationship, things are not always going to go smoothly or the way that you want. Now, getting further into that, a lot of people who contact us have very abusive partners, and that situation is very serious. Now, if there's abuse, neglect, or abandonment issues, well, they're all very serious, and that needs to be attended to. Now, with our book, Back from the Looking Glass, we dive straight into in chapter 1 saying, look, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to be safe. You've got to know where your money is. You've got to know who it is that's going to protect you if there's imminent danger. You need to be planning that for yourself, and then you need to be making sure that that arrangement and that posture that you have for yourself of safety for yourself, safety for your children, or whatever it is, that's in place as soon as possible. So we've got a bit of a couple of themes running here. They have to acknowledge that there's a power struggle. You have to acknowledge that you have to look after your own safety before you can start relying on other people to look after your safety, and particularly if that person is your partner and you don't have a good relationship or you don't have an acknowledgement that there's a power struggle. One of the biggest problems with a codependent narcissistic relationship is that there is just this behavior that sort of underpins a dysfunctional operating system, if you want. And that operating system is the narcissistic person in the relationship will try and take more of the resources, will belittle and marginalize other people within the family and outside the family. That narcissistic person will also cover his or her own tracks in terms of pitting people against each other, just slowly getting into the ears of the people around, Machiavellian style, and just trying to manipulate the political scene in order to gain more resources for themselves. So there's a whole range of poor behavior there that needs to be limited, and that's extremely important. That's everything that Kim and I teach. With Kim's book, Back from Looking Glass, that I'm a contributor to that book as well. With our book, we dive straight in and say you must take care of your own safety and understand that this problem is really important. So we understand, Kim and I understand this very well because that was our story and that was our relationship. And I was the narcissist most of the time. But wait, there's more. The other feature of a narcissistic codependent relationship is that the abuser and the codependent person who enables that abuse will swap roles from time to time. That's just the way it goes. There's different situations. A narcissistic person at home will become a codependent employee to a narcissistic employer at their workplace, or in a church situation or in another community group situation. That narcissistic person at home will become a codependent person outside of that dynamic. So we've got this very, very, very difficult terrain that we're faced with to deal with that, and that's not easy. Now, if we try and explain that to a health professional, a family counsellor, perhaps somebody in community services who's trying to help with family struggles, if you're trying to explain that narcissistic codependent pattern, you know, most professionals will understand it from a base level, but they're not necessarily willing to try and help you tackle it because that problem is very deep. And what that person in that professional role we'll try and do. We'll just try and help you with bits and pieces here and there. Okay, with police, they'll say, well, you're going to need to sort out your safety so you can take this protection order, and they'll just go down one track with that, and they'll keep it very narrow to their area of expertise. Now, what we're offering, I think, with our program here, is just a completely new way of dealing with it. When you talked about scripts, Dallas, I think that's very important. One of the fantastic, talking about being in an abusive or a dangerous situation, one of the most fantastic examples of people that were able to deal with that was Mrs. Peel from The Avengers. Now, The Avengers was made into a motion picture about 10 years ago or something, but it was actually a wonderful TV series in the 1960s from Great Britain. And Mrs. Peel was a martial arts expert. She was a fashionista. She looked gorgeous in everything she wore. She mostly dealt with high-powered individuals who were manipulative, narcissistic type characters. Now, she was able to deal with all of these people. Okay, it's a TV show, it's not real life. Just let me go through with this. She was able to deal with those narcissistic, manipulative people by having excellent scripts. And those scripts just kept coming out. Now, she was able to, what she was doing there, and I'm going back to where I first began, she was able to acknowledge that there was a power imbalance. She was able to acknowledge that this person was trying to gain power over them. But she didn't do it by going to pieces. She did it by having herself well prepared, well scripted, and being able to do it with a confidence in herself that meant that that other person who was trying to do the manipulating and the power struggle thing wasn't really able to pursue the conflict to a point that would suit them. And when I say that, what I mean is that she was able to end their game very neatly. And Dallas, you talked about it just before. You're saying to have that script to be able to say, I'm ending this conflict now. Now, to have those words correct, to have the delivery of that correct is something that you need to learn. But the Baggage Dumper program is really giving you that, because the Baggage Dumper program is letting you say, well, I'm not going to hang on to this old baggage that I have from the person who bullied me at school, from my mum who never used to say anything nice to me, from my first husband or my first wife who took me for everything. All of that baggage has to go before you're able to develop these new scripts and put yourself into that power and acknowledge that power of saying, hey, I'm in charge, this is my life, and yeah, I've actually got to look after my own stuff. So thank you for indulging me for so long to talk about that, because I just wanted to bring in the work that Kim and I have done over the years and how important it is to acknowledge that power struggle, because everything that we're talking about here, Dallas, is about getting those words right in your head, and then those words right coming out of your mouth at the opportune time.
Yeah, well, one of the things that helps us let go of stuff from our past, we were talking to someone just a little while back who was talking about that they were still carrying that feeling of being bullied from their past, even though it was many, many years ago. They still are resolving that. And one of the things that keeps these things hanging around inside us is if we don't feel ready for that to happen again, that we don't feel ready to deal with that situation. So part of our mind is going through rehearsal, rehearsal, rehearsal. What should I have done? So if you can bust through and come up with, okay, now I feel like if that person faced me now, I would be facing them very differently, then something inside you goes click, and you can let it go now, because you've got it covered. If that person turned up right in front of you, you'd stand tall, you'd look them in the eye, you'd have the thing to say, you'd step away at the right time, you'd get yourself, you just have the whole thing ready to roll. And so that can really help us to step away and get rid of old baggage if we feel like we're protected. It's part of, we were talking about the unconscious mind, the stuff that happens under the surface, and one of the big drivers of that part of us is protection. And so if we don't feel protected, we just hang on to that old emotion as kind of a little flag saying, you need to be protected, you need to be protected. So if you get yourself feeling protected, I know exactly what to do with that situation now, you can let go of that little emotional flag that your unconscious mind is throwing to you. You can just go, right, I've got that one. I can get rid of the emotion, which is anxiety or resentment or whatever it is that's hanging around from that past experience. You can just let it go because you've got this thing covered now. So as you go through the program, you'll hit bits of it that are just going to really help you with that. Say, what is it that's bothering me? Why is this emotion coming up continually? So and then we give you the tools to say, right, here's what to do. So that's a lot of fun when you can find those old things that are coming up for you continuously and sweep them out. But get the message from them first. What's it trying to tell me? How can I get myself protected? Then sweep it out. So if you're finding your inner Mrs. Peel who can just go bam, say the right thing, if you know that a situation has happened a lot of times before, it's a prime example of a time where you can change that pattern. And probably the most compelling example I've had of this is a lovely friend of mine. I hope she won't mind, I won't say her name, but hope she won't mind me using her as an example. She has the most challenging life of anyone I know. She married a man who had been in jail, and she knew he'd been in jail, but he had been working undercover with the police when she met him, and so she felt like he'd turned over a new leaf and he was a good guy, and I think he has what we would recognise as a psychopathic pattern. He is very charming, very personable. Her parents liked him, I liked him, we all thought, isn't it great he's overcome his past? But when you dig down, he hadn't at all, and he was really very violent, very criminal, and they had a child together before things became really scary. And so they've broken up, but she still needs to deal with him because they share custody of a child that's court ordered. He charmed the courts. He's got a lot of custody with that child, and so they have to work through that. And using a combination of Back from the Looking Glass, the Love Safety Network book, and the things that I do, it's amazing how she's managed to turn things around with interactions with him, because he felt like he could just push her around all the time. He said to me once, I know how to make her pop. And what he meant was to get her in mental health care. And while she was in there, he would steal her money, take her things, sell stuff, make arrangements that she didn't like. By the time she came out of mental health care, her whole life was in shambles again and she'd have to start rebuilding. And he felt like he had total control over that. Now I think she's gone about 3 years without any mental health episodes at all, because she knows what it takes to get herself really strong, really protected, draw the line on his stuff, not get dragged into those conversations. And he just responds to how she stands up taller. She looks him in the eye. She says, I'm happy to talk to you about arrangements with the child. Anything you need to talk to me about that, quite happy. If it's something else, we don't need to talk about that right now. We don't need to talk about that right now. And so she'll put the phone down gently at the end of a call. And he is treating her so differently. You know, she's no longer his punching bag, literally and figuratively. He doesn't get away with it anymore. And so that powerful combination in the most extreme of circumstances has brought her to a point where she can, in a business-like manner, share a child with someone who is so challenging and so extreme. You know, one day he might end up back in jail, and we're quite hopeful about that. But in the meantime, you've just got to make things work as well as they can. And she's doing it, and she's brought in all these resources to help her do it. And I'm so respectful of her journey and so admiring of what she's done. But we've given her the tools, and she's grabbed them and run with them. It's amazing.
Fantastic. That's a great story, Dallas. Thanks so much. Well, we should get into these questions that we've been sent in, and before we go too much further, before we run out of time. This first one is for you, Dallas. So there's 3 or 4 for you, Dallas, and there's a couple that I'll answer that you're more technical side. So we'll start with yours first, Dallas. Now, Jessica's written, and she said, how does health affect emotions and relationships? Now, Jessica goes into a little bit more detail about how she's finding that her downward slide in health has actually coexisted, or coincided with the downward slope in her relationship, and she's wondering if what kind of correlations we can draw there.
Yeah, well, I think health and relationships kind of have a two-way street. Bad things happening in your life can have negative effects on your health too. They undermine your immune system when you've got a big challenge on you. So it can happen in both directions. So getting things as clear as you can in your mind gets out any. There's two sides to ill health and suffering that comes from ill health. One is the ill health itself, and the things that that causes you, you can't move the same way or whatever those actual physical effects are. And then there's the psychological suffering that comes over the top of it. And sometimes that's even worse than the actual physical suffering. You know, faced with a certain level of pain, for instance, we can override it and function. And I know a lot of people who have got chronic illnesses that cause them terrible pain, and they just have found ways of managing that so that they can actually live life in a way that no one around them would even know that they were in chronic pain. So it's possible, but then there's that psychological level of suffering where part of you just wants to do that connect with myself thing and go, oh, poor me, oh, it's so terrible, and this is blighting my life, and I can never be happy, and that psychological suffering we put over the top of it. So one of the aims is to minimize that as much as we can. Notice when we're doing it, change the soundtrack, and come up with some scripts for yourself for what you do when that poor me, I'm suffering so much feeling comes up. Just maybe do. I really like the giant raspberry as a thought shaping tool. Just fly a giant raspberry at it. Then next time you go to run that same pattern, oh, there's a giant raspberry in the middle of it. Can't run it the same way as I used to. So it's actually a really powerful thing to help bust out old patterns. It's really fun to use that. So I know that's a playful thing to apply when you might have something that's terrible ill health, but you can see how you can separate out the physical suffering and the physical effects from the mental and emotional effects that are happening from that, and keep your connection with people, because sometimes that expressing the suffering, the emotional and mental suffering, is the thing that pushes people away from us. And a lot of people can gather around us and help us when we're feeling ill. That's a real example of how people can and might need to help us, rather than plan sort of victimhood. You are actually in need of help in that situation, and calling on people to help you can be a really important and precious thing. But if you can leave aside the mental and emotional side of it, then you become much more attractive to be around, even if you have got a physical problem that people need to help you deal with. I know that in my own life, having had people who have needed a lot of physical care at various times, it actually can be a really connecting thing if you keep that warmth between you. Um, a lovely little example is my mum had Alzheimer's and dementia, and my dad would bring her in her pills that she had to take for that and diabetes, and he would have them on a little plate, and he would hand her that with a glass of water and pass it to her, and towards the end she was losing touch with things quite badly, but she would say, oh, that's lovely, are you having some yourself? No, thanks, that'll be right. It's just so lovely to see that warmth between them, even though she had lots of health problems and lots of difficulties, they just kept that warmth between them. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be that your health goes down and your emotions and your beautiful connections go down with them. So finding ways to make that work for you is going to be a really important part of your journey.
Fantastic. And another one's just come in on the page, and it's from Kelly, and she's said here that she personally got a lot out of the strategy scramble, and she wants to know what can be done for shame. This seems to be something that I struggle with and would like to know. And I suppose we should just say that Strategy Scramble is one of the videos in the Baggage Dumper program Instant Access or DVD series. So Dallas, let's talk about that. Kelly's asked what can be done for shame. It's something that she struggles with.
Yeah, shame is an interesting one, and this ties right back to what I was saying before about how am I doing that. That strategy scramble session, that's the key question of strategy scramble. I'm actually running a strategy. I was running a strategy to be depressed, And even though I was labeling it as, oh, I'm naturally depressed and of course I'm depressed because of these terrible things that happened to me, it was actually a strategy that I was running from day to day, and it had those various aspects to it, the physiology, the focus, the language. So yeah, I love a good strategy scramble. Get in there, find out how you're doing it, and mess it up in really playful, useful ways. So shame is an interesting one because it's kind of like guilt, but it doesn't attach itself to anything. And it's guilt if you've done something wrong, if you've done something that doesn't live up to your own standards. Yeah, well, that's worth looking at and thinking, well, how did I fall short? Can I repair it? Can I resolve to do differently? Can I reconnect with some of the people that might have damaged a relationship with? So, you know, that there is a path to take to get back from guilt. And I think to the extent that shame overlaps with guilt, you had to do those same things. Figure out, well, what is it that I've done that I don't feel good about? And is that worth feeling bad about, or is that just something somebody's foisted onto me and I've just taken it because it's what I've always done? So you can think, I have this concept called sensible spotlight. You cast sensible spotlight on it and go, well, you know, that's somebody else's guilt. I don't need to feel guilty about that. And bringing that into consciousness can help you just blow the giant raspberry at it and get rid of it every time it pops its head up, as it always does. So you can actually move past a guilt that isn't yours. But if you look at it, cast a sensible spotlight there and think, yeah, I didn't live up to my own standards, then you can start the process of thinking, okay, well, how can I repair? How can I resolve to do differently? Sometimes no repair is possible. The situation's over, the people are gone. There's really nothing you can do there, but you can resolve really strongly that you're going to live up to your standards in the future. And you can reconnect with people in your world that might have blocked your connection with. So to the extent that shame overlaps with guilt, yeah, I would be doing those same things. But sometimes shame is like this free floating thing that it just hangs around. Like it might come from the playground where kids have turned on you and isolated you, and you have this feeling of shame even though you haven't done anything wrong. So I think the first step is to see that it doesn't attach to anything. It might just be a habit that you're running all the time, and noticing how you're using your body when you're running shame, when you're running it, not just experiencing it, but you actually are running that experience of shame. How are you using your body? What are you focusing on? What things are you reminding yourself of from your past? What things are you anticipating in your future? Where are your thoughts going to make that possible for you to be experiencing that shame? And also, what language are you using when you talk to yourself when you're in that experience of shame? So noticing what you're doing and how you're doing it really comes down to you then going, okay, what can I do differently? How can I mess that up, that strategy that I've had in the past? And, you know, the giant raspberry is a tool of choice for me. One. Or we do this all the time naturally. So say you've been doing something and it's you've been thinking about something over and over and over and it's not going anywhere. You might actually clap your hands together and say, right, enough of that. And you see people do it all the time. We do it ourselves all the time. Like, okay, that's enough of that. Let's get going with something else. I want to think about something else now. So you can interrupt your pattern with some sort of intervention, whether it's words or actions, or you might actually come up with one for yourself that when you hear yourself saying that, you're just going to do this giant hand clap and press the imaginary reset button. Or, you know, so you can actually get playful about how you deal with it and how you redirect your thoughts. Have a train of thought ready for this and have something to say. You know, I've always carry that stupid shame about that. I actually can feel great about the way and then fill in the blanks for yourself, that what you really do want instead. So yeah, use those playful techniques that you've had modeled for you in that program and reshape it.
Fantastic. So Dallas, I'm gonna get through these next questions quickly so we've got enough time for them all. The next one's from Roy. And he says, will the Baggage Dumper program help me with my finances? I have a good business, but I can't ever seem to bring it into being a great business. And he says he's looking forward to retiring soon, and he's really wants to get over this. So, Dallas, I mean, I'm very confident that the answer's going to be yes, but let me throw this over to Dallas.
Yeah, so I guess it's probably useful to throw in a bit of my work history here because for about 9 months I worked alongside a business coach travelling up and down the east coast of Australia helping businesses get their act together. And he is the most incredible business coach. I'm a really energetic person, but I couldn't keep up with Richie Williams, the Pride Business Coaching. I just literally couldn't keep up his pace. So in the end, I stopped working with him because there was just so much travel and so many businesses. But we still keep in good contact, and he brought me into that business because he could fix the mechanics of the business. He could make their procedures fantastic. He could help them set their goals. He could bring the team together. He could clarify roles. He could get rid of unnecessary stuff, and the business would go kaboom. But then there was this limiting point it would reach because the person who was running the business had mental rubbish in their heads that he didn't know how to get rid of. So that's where he called me in, and I just worked up and down the coast getting rid of people's mental rubbish so that then that ceiling that they'd hit could disappear for them, and they could really see their way through to. And we helped a lot of people who had a business that they were working towards retirement, and they felt like they couldn't get out of the business because they were so locked in, and it wasn't going as well as they wanted to, and they had to keep their hands on the levers. And so we do that double whammy of getting the levers all in other people's hands and then getting the mental rubbish out of their heads so that they could see their way clear to that happy future and that future beyond being tied to that business. And so it actually became a problem for us at one point because all the people whose businesses we helped to sort out were going overseas on vacation all the time, heading for Greece and Japan and well, poor Greece, it needs a few visitors at the moment, but yeah, when it wasn't in its dire straits, we had people going to Greece, Japan, US, all over the place, and we were looking for people to give testimonials for the next person who might come on board for the program, and they were all overseas. You'd have to say to them, well, there's someone getting back from Greece on Friday, and there's someone else getting back from Japan. They're not so they were all travelling because they didn't need to be there with their hands on the levers anymore. And part of that was brilliant business coaching, which I would recommend, but part of it was also that clearing the mental rubbish. And so it definitely, if Richie Williams, amazing business coach, saw how integral that was to the business, I'd say yes, clearing out that mental rubbish does help get rid of those ceilings and those limiting beliefs. Maybe you've got one hanging around that money is bad, or you get rid of some of those thoughts that aren't working for you, that are going to stop you from achieving at your best. So yeah, there's some mental rubbish definitely. Once you get these techniques, you can use it on anything you like. So if you notice yourself having this recurrent terrible thought that's getting in your way, use the tools that we've given you and go, I can use that one to get rid of that thought.
So just to clarify there, Dallas, just to clarify, you're saying that that business coaching that you used is similar to the Baggage Dumper program that you've provided with us that's available online now and on the DVD service.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. A lot of the same techniques I would use with those business leaders, the owners and managers of the businesses, just clearing out past mental rubbish that just holds us back. It just holds us back. So a lot of the processes would be exactly what you'll experience in Baggage Dumper.
Great. So the last question I've got now, and if you're watching online, you've got a chance to put a question on the page in the Facebook comments there, please feel free. We're running out of minutes, but you can type it up there quickly and I'll get it. But this one was from Melody, and this came through overnight as well. She says, my boyfriend and I keep breaking up and getting back together. It's becoming like a pattern now, and we've been on and off for about 5 years. How can I end this toing and froing, especially because I like it when we get back together?
Well, I guess that's sounding very much like Kim and Steve territory, so I won't be afraid to flick past that one. But one of the precious things about the original book, Back from the Looking Glass, and something that I found personally really very inspiring and empowering, was that sorting this from that. So once you start in on these processes, you can start seeing, okay, well, what's going on here? Where are my rules being broken and I need to protect myself, and where have I lacked emotional intelligence, or where do I need to step up and get my attachment right with my partner? So working through those tools from your programs, the Back from the Looking Glass and the Love Safety Net workbook, but also those great ones about ending codependence and You know, there's just so many resources there that you can use to get yourself in the right place where you can see what's really going on in this cycle. Because it sounds like there's a missing part of your understanding in what's going on here that you can use to go, aha, that's the bit that's missing. So I'd really recommend going back to all those great materials. So I guess that's part of my answer, and the other part is getting strong and self-protected is going to be a big part of your answer, so that you're not necessarily a straw in the wind just going with whatever's going on around you, that you have a set of standards that you'll keep to, and you know how to keep to them, and you know how to be in your body as you keep to them, you know what to say with your words as you keep to them. So setting your standards as to how you're treated. I'm imagining if you're splitting up all the time, there's some bad stuff going on there. Is that stuff you can put an end to within the relationship? Or is that stuff that you have to put outside and have standards that allow you to do that? So yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities that might be going on there, but I'd really recommend getting yourself strong through Baggage Dumper and using all the techniques from those resources back from the Looking Glass onwards. Fantastic.
Thanks, Dale. So look, we also got some questions in which I'm going to take the answer to these questions because they're more from the technical side of things. The first question was, I'm getting this a lot, is how much will the Baggage Dumper program cost me? And that's going to be answered in 3 parts. And first of all, I'd say it's a lot more inexpensive than it is doing it one-on-one. We've really consciously put this product together in order for it to be accessible and affordable. So I'm going to run through. You've got 3 options. Now, all of this is explained on the page. If you're watching us on Google+, thanks for joining us. But if you'd like to have a look at the webinar page, which is www.baggagedumper.com/webinar, you can go and have a look. And there's the page there which gives you the outline of all of the costs. But let me just run through it now quickly. If you're already viewing on that page, that link should be there. You can purchase the Baggage Dumper program as 6 DVDs. There it is, 6 DVDs sent to your address anywhere in the world. That's $127 plus shipping. So it's 6 DVDs. That means there's nothing further to pay. It's $127 plus shipping. It's about $6 or $7 shipping in the US. It's a little bit more to go outside the US. So just keep that in mind. But then you've got the entire program on DVD for you to watch as many times over as you want, and that's a pretty good deal. Now, if you wanted DVDs, if you wanted to get started sooner than that, because there is a 3 to 6 week wait for the DVDs to get shipped, if you'd like to get started from that for $107, you do get this shipped to you. But also that $107 is cheaper because you're signing up for the $39.95 a month gold level members access, which gives you the Baggage Dumper program delivered through your login. That's through your gold level members login. And you get that first month free if you pay the $107. So you've got the DVD coming at a discounted rate. You've got the first month free. And then you can get started on the program. Those videos are delivered into your gold level member access, a couple per week until you get through the whole series. Your minimum spend there is you've got 5 weeks. And to explain that further, I'll explain the third option. That's for $39.95 a month. You get gold level member access, which Kim and I have had available for a long time. So you've got all of our articles as well. You've got all of our gold level member articles. You get a replay of all of these webinars, but you also get the Baggage Dumper program streamed to you live via login. You can go back to it as much as you like. You can take as much time as you want with it. Now that's $39 a month, $39.95 US a month. Sign up. It'll take you 5 weeks to get through it all, which means you only have a minimum spend of $79.90. So that's how it works. Now, if you want any of those options explained to you, please go to the link on the baggagedumper.com/webinar page, or just go to baggagedumper.com and sign up, and you'll get a free video and some instructions. The other question, so that's the cost question. Thanks for letting me do that. It's more than a mouthful. It's a couple of mouthfuls. The other big question that I've been getting over the past week or so with the introduction of the Baggage Dumper program is, do I get to keep, or do I have to keep, or do I get to keep my silver level membership? A lot of people that are on our silver level member with End the Blame game from our blog, that's the lower level membership. With the Baggage Dumper option, you actually get to upgrade, which means that you no longer have to pay for the silver level member. You just go up to gold. So you're not paying twice. You're moving up to the $39.95 a month gold level membership option, but your silver level membership gets taken out of that equation. So you're not paying twice, you're upgrading. So if any of the silver level member people are watching, please get in touch with me or Kim. You know how to get in touch with us by now, and we can walk you through that and make sure you don't double up on any payments. It's a pretty clean system, but if you are worried in any way, feel free to let me know and we can talk through it. Now, the last question I get a lot is, can we download the Baggage Dumper program from the web? And the answer is no. Now, we talked to our fantastic web support people, and they just said to us immediately, they said, look, this is a precious product. You can't, as soon as you let anyone download it, you know, you're only minutes away from it being on the web and it's being shared all over the web. And we just can't afford. Dallas and Kim and I put a lot of hours, a lot of weeks and months into preparing this product in order to make it accessible, but we can't make it so accessible that it's free. So realistically, we haven't been able to offer a download, but when you're in the gold level membership, what you have is an access, and that access allows you to stream it and watch it as much as you want. Now, we're with a service called Wistia, who are wonderful. It's a really clean, clear, it's been well produced. Kim's done all of the editing and the sound editing, and she's an amazing sound engineer, and she's done a great job. And I think that you'll get a very, very nice, intimate feel from watching it online. So those were the main questions I've got. I just wonder if there's anything. Oh, there's one more that's just come in. Kathleen says, how does this relate to EMDR? Can this method be used in conjunction with EMDR? And I'm not sure if EMDR is something I'm aware of. Do you know about that, Dallas?
Yeah, that's something that I do know about, but it's not a short answer. So
okay.
I know Kim was saying we should keep these things going. Maybe I can put an answer to that on Facebook as well in the meantime.
That's a great idea.
We can carry over to next webinar because I think we won't have one tomorrow, but we might have one coming up, or a series of these that people can access over time. So that'll be top of our list of things to deal with in the next one. Thanks for that question. It's great to have this interaction and start hearing what you're interested in, so we don't just rabbit on about things you don't care about. Yeah, so I'll get an answer up on Facebook in the meantime, so if you've got access to Facebook, you can find that. And we'll talk some more about that in our next, because it's probably of interest to others as well, how it relates to all sorts of other programs and ways of doing things.
Fantastic. And it was just, we do, I just wanted to let you know that 6 DVDs in the program, so now it's many, many hours of one-on-one training, and so I don't exactly know the hour and minute count, but it's quite a lot, and it'll take you 5 weeks online, or it's 6 DVDs. So, you know, it's a really, really solid program with a lot of fantastic information, and that's the baggagedumper.com program. So I think we are running out of time. We really cut it fine to the bone. Dallas, thanks so much. It's so good, and Kim sends her apologies to you, of course, Dallas, as well as everybody else online. But thanks so much. So let's keep in touch, and let's let everybody know that you can keep in touch with us on the page. Put your comments in there. We can see them. We are busy people, and we do have to go from office to office and studio to studio. Sometimes if we don't get back to you straight away, we're just in transit, but we'll do our best. So Dallas, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next time.
Great to be here again. See you, Steve. See you, everyone.
Thanks to our team over in the US. Thanks to Chris and Margie. You've been doing a fantastic job for us, and thanks for supporting us. Blessings from Kim and myself, and we'll see you all at our next webinar. Hopefully you'll be joining us, and we'll be doing a live connected one all together. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.